All right, welcome everybody to another episode of the CD and Vinyl Guys. My name is Brendan Snyder, and for this episode, we are going to discuss who would be in your dream band. If you've ever sat back and wondered, what it would be like to create your own supergroup, this is the episode for you. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of different artists and musicians and whatnot, and create our own dream band. And the format for this is going to be twin guitars, bass, drums, keyboards, and vocals. And you know what, you guys playing at home, if you want to throw in the violinist or something from like Kansas, that's fine. We're going to create two lists, one from musicians who are still alive, and then another one for musicians who are deceased. And so before we go any further, though, I'd like to introduce my special guest, Chris Propfe from Musically Obsessed. How are you?
I'm doing good, Brendan. Thanks for having me on again. This is fun.
Absolutely. I'm glad to have you here. And for those of you who are watching us for the first time out there, check the description below. I'm going to leave some links in there to other videos that Chris and I have done. And I'm going to leave a link to Chris's channel in there. And if you can go check him out, and then also comment, like, and subscribe on both our channels. We both really appreciate the support. And without any further ado, let's jump right into this. So, Chris, I went through tons and tons of musicians on this one, and it was so hard for me to narrow down in certain categories, and then other ones I was really scratching my head like trying to come up with. And so I've got some musicians here that I didn't go with that I want to throw out there and see what your thoughts are. So like under guitars, big name guitars comes to mind in our world. Tony Iommi, Black Sabbath, right? So I thought about him, but ultimately he didn't make the list. I'm just curious of your thoughts on him.
Yeah, and now that you say that, I'm thinking, I probably should have picked Tony Iommi. I mean, right. And thinking about it, he's like the riff master.
Exactly.
So, and talk about just his guitar tone and just his influence in heavy metal. I mean, he should be on this list, but I didn't put him on the list either. So that's right. Crazy.
So when we get down closer to it, for me at least, I'm going to explain, how it is and why I put these particular musicians together. And that's right. Probably a different approach. Like my initial gut reaction on this was to simply pick my favorite musicians. But I started to look at that and I'm like, so, Tony Iommi's a great guitar player. Another one on here, Eddie Van Halen. I didn't pick him, but
I didn't either.
Phenomenal guitar player, but like, we're allowed to have two guitar players, twin guitar players. But could you imagine Eddie Van Halen with Tony Iommi? Right. I don't think it would work. So that's what a lot of this is for me. I had to stop and think about whether they would gel or go together.
Well, it actually could work because I'm thinking, I don't a lot of times think of Tony Iommi as the soloist. Mm-hmm. He has some killer solos.
Right.
I almost think of him as more of a rhythm guitarist with his riffs.
Right.
Maybe he could put down a killer riff and then Eddie could solo over that. And again, I'm not saying Tony didn't solo.
Right.
But that actually could work. But you're right. It's two egos sort of going each other.
And it's too disparate. I mean, the heavy metal sound versus what Eddie does on the guitar, to me, doesn't seem like it would merge or not. But, then I thought of other ones, Neil Schon of Journey. Phenomenal melodic rock guitarist that he is, but would he work with any of these? Right. My favorite bass player is Billy Sheehan, right? From David Lee Roth Band and Mr. Big and just a number of other things. But his bass playing, which I love in its own right, mixing in with a bunch of other musical artists that I picked, I don't know how well that would work. And case in point, it's like try to put, I suppose Billy Sheehan next to Eddie Van Halen would certainly work because it worked next to Steve Vai.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you almost have to have two virtuosos on their instrument for it to work. I mean, I guess that could backfire sometimes, but I think they would play off of each other really well.
And then for bass players, and a lot of the musicians I picked are vocalists, multi-instrumentalist kind of thing. So like I've got Geddy Lee on here, which is, vocalist for Rush, but he's also the bassist and he's an amazing bass player. Didn't make the ultimate list. I also have Sting from the Police, right? Same thing. Again, he's the vocalist and he's the bass player on here.
Right.
You're a big fan of Rush though. Surprised you didn't, think of, or use Geddy Lee.
Yeah. I'm looking at my list right now. I'm like, crap, I didn't pick Geddy Lee. You know what? I think
We might have to
Sometimes,
revise the list by the end.
I know, right? Can we pause this and I'll just erase? No. I think sometimes when I'm doing these sort of things,
Mhm.
like sometimes the obvious choices don't come to mind right away.
Yeah.
It's like I'm thinking about it too hard or
Hmm,
too
hmm.
making it more difficult than it really is.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, I mean, any of the names you mentioned would have been phenomenal on these lists. And what's crazy about that is none of these are on our list. So I think everybody's probably wondering now, well, who the heck did you guys pick?
Exactly. So let me just give a couple more on the next categories, and then we're going to jump right into that. So on drums, someone I really considered was Roger Taylor of Queen. His
Hmm.
amazing vocals and his ability on the drums. And then
Right.
someone else was Nick Mason of Pink Floyd. I think he's a highly underrated drummer who doesn't get the same notoriety that the other guys get, Roger
Right.
Waters and David Gilmour, and even
Right.
Rick Wright, to that matter, who's on the keyboard list but didn't make it.
Yeah, and I think what's good about Nick Mason is that I think he can do so. He's more. I think he's a drummer slash percussionist. Like
Right.
he
Very
plays
rhythmic.
with different. He plays with different sounds, and I think he adds almost like soundscapes to the music, which
Mhm.
some drummers can't do. So
Right.
I think he is definitely underrated.
No, that's a great way to explain him for sure. And
Yeah.
another drummer on here that I bet a lot of people would have on their list, John Bonham from Led Zeppelin, could be on the deceased, super
Yeah.
list.
And I'm thinking now, yeah, why didn't I put him on there? And again, I think he's the obvious choice, and maybe my brain just didn't go there. But yeah,
Right.
I mean, John Bonham,
Well,
he's
you're a
just
huge Kiss fan, so how about Eric Carr on the as a deceased member?
that would. You know what? I should just have you make my list for me. Yeah, those are all great choices. Yeah, I mean Eric Carr. The good thing about Eric Carr was that he gave Kiss a kick in the ass when they needed it.
He did. He really stepped up into pushing them into that harder rock vein that they need.
Right, and I love Peter Criss. I'm a huge Peter Criss fan. I've gone on record saying that that's my favorite solo record. I love his
Right.
voice, everything about him. But he was almost perfect for their '70s sound.
Right.
They needed somebody different for when they moved into the '80s. It was faster, it was edgier,
Mhm.
needed a kick in the ass, and that's where Eric Carr came in.
Yeah, absolutely. And then vocalists. I'm a big metal fan and stuff, so I thought of people like Zach Stevens from Sabotage and Ripper Owens, who one time was part of Priest, but is part of
Right.
every other band under the sun. It seems like Jeff Tate of Queensryche,
Mhm.
and then it's like Freddie Mercury, right? I mean, the phenomenal vocalist that he is, and his
Right.
showmanship and everything. But again, didn't make my list.
Yeah, and I think, as I was going through this, I was like, okay, well, what band am I trying to form? Am I trying
Right.
to form a thrash band? Am I trying to form just like a hard rock band? So I think sort of the genre plays a part into it too. And
Absolutely.
I, and I didn't really go that far because I'm looking at my list right now, and some of my guys are like from different,
Hmm.
spectrums of the
Sure.
scale. But yeah,
But I
it
think
would
that's
if we said like the ultimate thrash or the ultimate hard rock. You know what I mean?
right. Yeah, exactly. And that's what why some of my favorite musicians didn't necessarily make it into the list, because what I really began to look at was who would gel together. And
Right.
so I guess that brings us to that point. Let's who made the dream bands?
Yeah.
And for me in particular, I wanted, multi-instrumentalists. I wanted them all of, not most of them, to be vocalists,
Mhm.
major songwriters, kind of a thing. So I started looking at it from that sort of a round. And I'm going to jump in. I'm going to do the musicians that are alive. So this is my group, my 6 members. We'll kick
Mhm.
off with guitars. So David Gilmour from Pink Floyd, amazing blues player that he is,
Mhm.
and Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin. Put those two guys together. I thought they would be able to merge. Jimmy Page would rock it up a bit more, but David Gilmour would bring in just that slinky, silky, blues soloing that he does.
Mhm.
Bass player Glenn Hughes, Deep
Nice.
Purple, Black Sabbath, amazing bassist, but also an amazing vocalist. And I did consider him for the vocalist role, but I decided not to go that route with him. Drummer Phil Collins from
Mm.
Genesis,
All right.
and again, got great vocalists in David Gilmour, Glenn Hughes, Phil Collins. Keyboards, I picked Jeff Downs from Asia and Yes.
Wow.
So
Deep pick there.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And for vocals, I know this one would probably be controversial, but in the end of the day, I went David Coverdale, White Snake, Deep Purple. I wanted to get that pairing of Glenn Hughes, David Coverdale back together from the Burn era of Deep Purple. So there you go. David Gilmour, Jimmy Page, Glenn Hughes, Phil Collins, Jeff Downs, David Coverdale. Those are my picks for the musicians who are still alive.
I would love to see that band. And I just hope that, you wonder, like, would these guys be fighting, or would they get along, or, maybe just give them a few drinks and they just jam for a few hours?
Some of them I think would. I don't think Phil Collins could get along with a lot of them, but I think the rest of them could actually do it.
Yeah, no, that's a great list. All right, so
who did you pick?
Yeah, you know what? My two guitar players, I went with Dave Murray from Maiden.
Ah, nice, yeah.
Glenn Tipton from Priest.
Ooh,
and the reason I picked the two of them is, like, they're used to playing with a partner. I mean, of course, Glenn was with KK Downing,
right?
And Dave Murray played with Adrian Smith and other guitar players, Yannick Gers. So they're sort of used to sharing the spotlight. Thought that they would work well together. Now, my bass player, here's a very interesting pick. I went with Gene Simmons from Kiss. Now,
I thought of that. I did.
Here's the reason, and I want anybody to comment below and let me know if I'm wrong. I feel like Gene Simmons is an underrated bass player. Like, we think of Gene as, like, all right, he's going to stick his tongue out and spit blood and sing songs. I
think of him as a songwriter.
16. Yeah. But listen to his bass lines. I mean, this guy I love his bass lines. I think he's a natural, and I think he's underrated as a bass player.
It's sort of like Nikki Sixx from Motley Crue. Nobody really thinks of him as a fantastic musician or anything like that. But if you listen to what he does, he doesn't do anything overly flashy, but he really works with what he's got, and he fills the voids in the song.
Yeah, so everybody tonight, that's your homework. Pull out a Kiss record, listen to Gene Simmons bass lines. It's kick-ass. Keyboard.
Yeah.
I went Don Airey.
Oh, yeah. See, I totally didn't think of him.
Oh, yeah. Well, here's the thing. I saw Deep Purple live a few years ago. It was Deep Purple and Priest. Priest was touring on the Firepower tour.
Okay.
And Priest opened for Deep Purple, which I thought was strange. I would have put
Deep Purple.
Priest, but Don Airey is a phenomenal keyboard player, and they had a lot of close-ups of him, and he is just a magician and a musician on the keyboard. Phenomenal.
Oh, absolutely. I could totally see that.
And all right, my singer, this is a real random one, but I'm going with Michael Kiske from Halloween.
Oh, I thought you might. We've been talking about Halloween recently, and I thought, I wonder if he's going to choose him.
That guy has a phenomenal voice.
He does. And the thing is, that's actually a really good choice, because he can sing. Of course, we know that he sings heavy metal. Yeah. And we know that he sings the early Halloween, which is almost thrash. But if you ever listen to his projects outside of Halloween, he went far, far away and has sung all kinds of different stuff. AOR, melodic rock stuff. He did a punk album. He's done he did like a late grunge thing in the early 90s, late 90s. So great choice, actually. He could cover
he can still sing, and I can't wait for that new Halloween record, because it's going to be him. And what's the other guy's name? Andrea
Darius.
Yeah, they're going to be phenomenal together. I forgot to my drummer. Now, this is out of left field.
Okay.
I'm a huge Black Flag fan. Bill Stevenson is the drummer for Black Flag. He is a phenomenal drummer. Like, he is just all over the place. I would love to see what he would do with some of these hard rock metal guys.
Okay.
I think he could keep up and Black Flag, anybody who follows Black Flag were huge fans of Dio.
I didn't know that.
They love the metal world, and Black Flag actually did some sort of metal leanings in their songs. So I would love to see Bill Stevenson play with some of these guys.
That's a good lineup. It's a nice, diverse lineup too in there. It would be interesting to see what they could create.
Are we talking about background singers or not?
Sure, go ahead. Add one in.
All right, I have two. I went with a female and a male.
All right.
I'm going with Lita Ford.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to go with your man, Tim Ripper Owens. I love Ripper.
He is great. He really is.
He can do a lot of different things with his voice.
He can. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've seen him, I saw him singing when he was with Priest. I've seen him out of Priest. The guy's phenomenal.
I mean, he sang on a freaking Yngwie Malmsteen album. So,
Right.
There you go.
All right. So, supergroup where the musicians are deceased. All right. So, I'm going for guitarist Tom Petty matching up with Jimi Hendrix as a duel there. Bass player would be Chris Squire.
Okay.
And drummer Neil Peart from Rush.
Nice.
Okay. And then on keyboards, John Lord, the other master from Deep Purple. Don Airey, of course, taking over for him.
Right.
And on vocals, Jim Morrison.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love the Doors, and actually that's funny because last night I was listening to Soft Parade and the debut by the Doors. Just a great band.
Right. So Tom Petty, Jimi Hendrix, Chris Squire, Neil Peart, John Lord, Jim Morrison. I don't know what we'd get out of that mix, but I think that'd be really wild. And you know what? Who knows? Maybe they're jamming upstairs in heaven right now as we speak.
Well, this is really funny because I'm looking at my list right now. For my vocalist, I put somebody who's alive right now. I must have been thinking of I put Glenn Danzig as my vocalist. Now we all know he's still. So right now, I'm thinking right now of who my vocalist is going to be. So all these other people are deceased. So here we go.
All right.
My two guitar players are Zappa, Frank Zappa, and Jeff Hanneman from Slayer.
Ooh.
That would be weird because Zappa was more, I mean, Zappa did some crazy solos, but I think it was a little bit more by the books than Jeff Hanneman. I think Jeff Hanneman was just...
he's real loose. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it would be a cool pairing.
That'd be interesting.
Jeff Hanneman gave Slayer their iconic sound. One of the reasons.
Yeah.
Bass, Lemmy.
Oh, God, see, I didn't even think of that. Yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah, Lemmy. And he could, listen, if my vocalist was not there one night, Lemmy could take over vocals.
Right. If you need to,
right.
match up.
Now, drums. I went with Cozy Powell.
Oh, God, another great one. See, we were talking about this before that, ones we didn't think of are I had that whole list of other artists and stuff. Yeah. And even then, I didn't think of some of these. There's so many great ones.
I mean, his drumming with Rainbow was phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so keyboards. Here's one that some people might not think of. I'm a big fan of Iron Butterfly, and the keyboard player in Iron Butterfly, his name was Doug Ingle. And what was really cool about him, he was a vocalist as well. He was their lead singer. But he played a keyboard, and it basically, I think it was like a form of a church organ. It was so cool, and it gave Iron Butterfly their unique sound. It was heavy too, and I think he would work pretty well with these guys.
I'd love to hear the Iron Butterfly organ sound with Jeff Hanneman riffs, and then Zappa soloing over it.
Well, you could kind of hear it because, Slayer does a version of In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida.
Yes.
On the Less Than Zero soundtrack.
I'll listen to that after this.
Okay, so my vocalist, obviously Glenn Danzig is not.
Right.
Thank God, because I love Glenn Danzig.
I know.
I'm gonna bring my backup singer up to the front now.
Okay.
I'm going with Phil Lynott.
Oh, yeah.
And that's how you pronounce his last name, right?
Yeah, Phil Lynott.
Yeah. I'm going with him from Thin Lizzy. I mean, I love his vocals.
He's a great bass player too. Another underrated bass player.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and Thin Lizzy really is not talked about enough. Like we always say, oh yeah, the boys are back in town. And you know what? Thin Lizzy, their albums are so good. Their deep cuts are so good.
Their deep cuts are really good. I agree completely. When the John Sykes version got back together to do some live dates in the late 90s and an album was recorded, all I knew was the boys are back in town. And I had no interest in it. But it was on the CMC label. And at the time, that's where all the metal bands were. That's where Iron Maiden moved to. And, all those and some of the, glam metal bands and stuff. So I was really interested in this label. Why are they signing, these bands? So I picked it up because of that. And thank God I did, because I found out they were so much more than that one song.
Right. And I know Phil Lynott came out with at least one solo record.
Yeah, it's got two, Solo and Soho.
Yeah, I'd like to pick up some of that stuff. And
They're
wrote
on
this
the
out.
Wounded Bird label.
When my other background singer was Janis Joplin.
Oh, yeah, that would be good. Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't do background singers, and I should have. But I did add this one in. First of all the artists that I picked, I looked at them as songwriters and vocalists and so forth, because I really wanted to create, some real depth in what they were going to do. But I thought if I could also pick a songwriter, I wanted Jim Steinman for the deceased and Desmond Child for the alive musicians.
Yeah, I mean, Desmond Child, we could probably do a whole video on him. I mean, just the hits that have been written.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So there you go. That's who we would pick as our dream bands. And I'm sure you guys have your own selections and ideas, and probably other ones that we even forgot that we were just discovering as we're talking about it here. So certainly leave your comments down in the, below, and let us know your thoughts. And we hope everyone has a great day. Yep. There's
my notes.
I've got mine. So
see, I'm old school.
Right. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good one, and we'll talk to you all real soon. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.